Your children are not safe in the Roman Catholic Church. There's been this massive scandal involving the Roman Catholic Church in Australia revolving around sex abuse allegations. According to the BBC, an inquiry examining institutional sex abuse in Australia has heard 7% of the nation's Catholic priests allegedly abused children between 1950 and 2010. In one religious order, over 40% of church figures were accused of abuse, and over 4,440 people have claimed to have been victims between 1980 to 2015. Wow! Now I know that sex abuse cases happen in many different churches, from Catholic to Protestant, but having a religious order in which 40% of the clergy is involved is unprecedented. The BBC report continues on to say, children were ignored, or worse, punished. Allegations were not investigated. Priests and religious figures were moved. The parishes or communities to which they were moved knew nothing of their past. This is not the only time the Catholic Church has been accused of sexual abuse and cover-ups. Cases in the past have been widely reported in Ireland, Canada, and the United States. In the 1990s, a series of criminal cases and Irish government inquiries established that hundreds of priests had abused thousands of children in previous decades. In Newfoundland, Canada, more than 300 orphanage residents were abused at the hands of the Christian Brothers of Ireland in Canada during the late 1980s and early 1990s. In the United States, it was discovered in the early 90s and early 2000s that priests and lay members of religious orders in the Catholic Church had sexually abused thousands of children spanning several decades. In many cases, the abusing priests were moved to other parishes to avoid embarrassment or a scandal, assisted by senior clergy. Besides this, there have been many more cases of sexual abuse by Catholic clergy around the world. What I mentioned is probably just barely scratching the surface. As a result of all this, there were many lawsuits causing the Roman Catholic Church to pay out $4 billion in damages to compensate for sexual abuses. Unfortunately, though, few of the Catholic clergy who molest children are ever brought to justice. The Seattle Times published an article stating that out of 77 priests and clergy members identified as likely sex abusers in the Archdiocese of Seattle, only 5 of them were prosecuted. One of the reasons is because they are protected by the statute of limitations. Many of their victims publicly accused them of molesting them decades later, and they were no longer prosecutable. And even when the Vatican decides to punish Catholic clergy for molesting children, that punishment is very lenient. For example, the Daily Mail reported that Pope Francis ordered an Italian priest named Reverend Mauro Inzoli to be punished by a lifetime of prayer for molesting 5 young boys. Typically, what the Vatican does with these types of cases is either defrock the guilty clergy member or give out a lesser punishment, like a lifetime of prayer. What the Vatican isn't doing, though, is handing over the names of the offenders to the police. Newsweek ran an article in which it reported a Vatican official has told newly appointed bishops that they have no obligation to report instances of clerical sexual abuse, as it's the responsibility of the victims and their families. You know what that says to me? The Catholic Church does not have the safety of your children in its best interests. Instead of making sure your children are safe by reporting known pedophiles to the police, they would rather cover up their crimes in an attempt to save face. What do you think? Should the Catholic Church report pedophile priests to the police? Let me know in the comments section. For me, that's cause to leave a religion. As a matter of fact, I grew up as a Catholic, but ended up leaving the church at the age of 23. Not necessarily because of all the sexual abuse and cover-ups, but because of the practices and teachings of the church which contradict the Bible. Anyway, if all the past sexual abuses and the recent Australian scandal in the Catholic Church is not bad enough, recently Cardinal George Pell has been accused of sexual misconduct as well. This is a big deal because George Pell is Australia's most senior Catholic and a senior advisor to Pope Francis. He is also the third-ranking official in the Holy See, and he's the Vatican's treasurer. So what we're talking about here is corruption in the highest levels of Catholicism. Pell has received multiple charges by multiple complainants in Australia and is scheduled to appear in Melbourne Magistrates Court on July 26th. However, in his defense, Pell claims that he is the victim of relentless character assassination and that these accusations are not true, and he hopes to clear that up in court. Given the Catholic Church's track record, though, I'm sure you won't hold it against me if I'm hesitant to believe him, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in court. Sexual misconduct has reached the highest levels in the Roman Catholic Church. And one of the things that I believe this indicates is that the Roman Catholic Church is spiritually bankrupt. I believe that God is allowing this sexual misconduct to be exposed to reinforce the call to come out of Babylon in Revelation chapter 18 verses 1 through 4. Verses 2 and 4 read, "Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." Babylon in the Bible represents false religion, and the Roman Catholic Church is at the top of that pyramid. God is calling his people out of this religion because it is spiritually bankrupt. Instead of being led by the Holy Spirit, Revelation chapter 18 verse 2 says it is a hold of every foul spirit. In other words, evil spirits or demons. And your children are not safe in the Roman Catholic Church. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Make sure and click on the notifications icon next to the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And check out some more of my videos by clicking on the screen. I have a lot of good Christian videos, which I'm sure you'll enjoy if you liked this one. God bless you.